Chapter 3. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but the first impressions are often entirely wrong. You can look at a painting for the first time, for example, and not like it at all, but after looking at it a little longer, you may find it very pleasing. The first time you try a gorgonzola cheese, you may find it too strong, but when you're older, you may want to eat nothing but gorgonzola cheese. Klaus, when Sunny was born, didn't like her at all. But by the time she was 6 weeks old, the two of them were thick as thieves. Your initial opinion on just about anything may change over time. I wish I could tell you that the Baudelaire's first impression of Count Olaf and his house were incorrect, as first impressions often are. But these impressions that Count Olaf was a horrible person and his house was a depressing pigsty were absolutely correct. During the first few days of the orphan's arrival at Count Olaf's, Violet and Klaus and Sunny attempted to make themselves feel at home, but it was really no use. Even though Count Olaf's house was quite large, the three children were placed together in one filthy bedroom that only had one small bed in it. Violet and Klaus took turns sleeping in it so that every other night one of them was in the bed and the other was sleeping on the hard wooden floor. And the bed and the mattress was so lumpy it was difficult to say who was more uncomfortable. To make a bed for Sunny, Violet removed the dusty curtains from the curtain rod that hung over the bedroom's one window and bunched them together to form a sort of cushion just big enough for her sister. However, without curtains over the cracked glass, the sun streamed through the window every morning, so the children woke up early and sore each day. Instead of a closet, there was a large cardboard box that once held a refrigerator and would now hold the three children's clothes, all piled in a heap. Instead of toys and books and other things to amuse the youngsters, Count Olaf provided a small pile of rocks. And the only decoration on the peeling walls was a large and ugly painting of an eye, matching the one on Count Olaf's ankle and the one and all over the house. But the children knew, as I'm sure you know, that the worst surroundings in the world can be tolerated if people in them are interesting and kind. Count Olaf was neither interesting nor kind. He was demanding and short-tempered and bad-smelling. The only good thing to be said for Count Olaf that he wasn't around very often. When the children woke up and chose their clothing out of the refrigerator box, they would walk into the kitchen and find a list of instructions left for them by Count Olaf, who would often not appear until nighttime. Most of the day he spent out of the house or up in the high tower where the children were forbidden to go. The instructions he had left for them were usually difficult chores, such as repainting the back porch or repairing the windows instead of the signature, Count Olaf would draw an eye at the bottom of the note. One morning his note read, "My theater troupe will be coming for dinner before tonight's performance. Have dinner ready for all 10 of them by the time we arrive at 7 o'clock. Buy the food, prepare it, and set the table. Serve dinner, clean up afterwards, and stay out of the way." Below that there was the usual eye, and underneath that notes was a small sum of money for groceries. Violet and Klaus read the note as they ate their breakfast, which was gray and lumpy oatmeal Count Olaf left for them each morning in a large pot by the stove. Then they looked at each other in dismay. "None of us know how to cook," Klaus said. "That's true," Violet said. I knew how to repair those windows and how to clean the chimney because those are the sort of interesting things to me, but I don't know how to cook anything except toast. And sometimes you burn toast," Klaus said. And they smiled. They both remembered the time the two of them got up early to make a special breakfast for their parents. Violet had burned the toast, and their parents, smelling smoke, had run downstairs to see what was the matter. When they saw Violet and Klaus looking forlornly at a piece of pitch black toast, they laughed and laughed and laughed and then made pancakes for the whole family. "I wish they were here," Violet said. She did not have to explain what she was talking about their parents. "They would never let us stay in this dreadful place." "If they were here," Klaus said, his voice rising as he got more and more upset, "we wouldn't be with Count Olaf in the first place. I hate it here, Violet. I hate this house. I hate our room. I hate having to do all these chores, and I hate Count Olaf." "I hate it too," Violet said, and Klaus looked at his older sister with relief. Sometimes just saying that you hate something and having someone to agree with you can make you feel better about a terrible situation. "I hate everything about our lives right now, Klaus," she said. "But we have to keep our chin up." This was an expression the children's father had used, and it meant try to stay cheerful. "You're right," Klaus said, "but it's very difficult to keep one's chin up when Count Olaf keeps shoving it down." "Joke," Sunny shrieked, banging on the table with her oatmeal spoon. Violet and Klaus were jerked out of their conversation and looked once again at Count Olaf's notes. Perhaps we could find a cookbook and read about how to cook, Klaus said. It shouldn't be too difficult to make a simple meal. Violet and Klaus spent several minutes opening and shutting Count Olaf's kitchen cupboards, but there weren't any cookbooks to be found. I can't say I'm surprised, Violet said. We haven't found any books in this house at all. I know, Klaus said miserably. I miss reading very much. We must go out and look for a library sometime soon. But not today, Violet said. Today we have to cook for 10 people. And at the moment, there was a knock at the door. Violet and Klaus looked at each other nervously. Who in the world would want to visit Count Olaf? Violet wondered out loud. Maybe somebody wants to visit us, Klaus said without much hope. In the time since the Baudelaire parents' death, most of the Baudelaire orphans' friends had fallen by the wayside, an expression which here means they stopped calling, writing, stopping by seeing any of the Baudelaire, making them very lonely. You and I, of course, would never do this to any of our grieving acquaintances, but it is sad truth in the life of when someone has lost a loved one. Friends sometimes avoid the person just when the presence of a friend is most needed. Violet, Klaus, and Sunny walked slowly to the front door and peered through the peephole, which was shaped as an eye. They were delighted to see Justice Strauss peering back at them and opened the door. Justice Strauss, Violet cried. How lovely to see you. She was about to add, do come in, but then realized that Justice Strauss would probably not want to venture into the dim and dirty room. Please forgive me for not stopping by sooner, Justice Strauss said, as the Baudelaire stood awkwardly in the doorway. I wanted to see how you children are settling in, but had a very difficult case in the High Court, and it was taking up much of my time. What sort of case was it? Klaus asked. Having been deprived of reading, he was hungry for new information. I can't really discuss it, Justice Strauss said, because it's official business, but I can tell you it concerns a poisonous plant and the illegal use of someone's credit card. Yeka! Sunny shrieked, which appeared to mean, oh, interesting, although of course there was no way that Sunny could understand what was being said. Justice Strauss looked down at Sunny and laughed. Yeka indeed, she said, and reached down and pat the child on the head. Sunny took Justice Strauss' hands and bit it gently. That means she likes you, Violet explained. She bites very, very hard if she doesn't like you or wants to or you want to give her a bath. I see, Justice Strauss said. Now then, how are you children getting on? Is there anything you desire? The children looked at one another and all of the things they desired. Another bed, for example, a proper crib for Sunny, curtains for the window in the bedroom, a closet instead of a cardboard box. But what they desired the most, of course, was to not be associated with Count Olaf in any way whatsoever. What they desired the most was to be with their parents again in their true home, but of course that was impossible. Violet and Klaus all looked down at the floor unhappily as they considered the question. Finally, Klaus spoke. Can we perhaps borrow a cookbook, he said. Count Olaf has instructed us to make dinner for his theater troupe tonight, and we can't find a cookbook in this house. Goodness, Justice Strauss said, cooking dinner for an entire theater troupe seems to be like a lot of an ask of children. Count Olaf gives us a lot of responsibility, Violet said. What she wanted to say was Count Olaf is an evil man, but she was well mannered. Well, why don't you just come next door to my house, Justice Strauss said, and find any cookbook that pleases you. The youngsters agreed to follow Justice Strauss out the door and over to her well-kept house. She led them through an elegant hallway smelling of flowers into an enormous room, and when she well-kept room, she led them through an elegant hallway smelling flowers into an enormous room, and when they saw what was inside, they nearly fainted from delight, Klaus especially. The room was a library, not a public library, but a private library that is a large collection of books belonging to Justice Strauss. There were shelves and shelves of them on every wall from the floor to ceiling, and separate shelves and shelves of them in the middle of the room. The only place they weren't books was the one corner where there were some large, comfortable-looking chairs and wooden tables with lamps hanging over them, perfect for reading. Although it was not big as their parents' library, it was cozy, and the Baudelaire children were thrilled. My word, Violet said, this is a wonderful library. Thank you very much, Justice Strauss said. I've been collecting books for years, and I'm very proud of my collection. As long as you keep them in good condition, you're welcome to use any books anytime. Now the cookbooks are over here on the eastern wall. Shall we have a look at them? Yes, Violet said. And then, if you don't mind, I should love to look at any of your books concerning mechanical engineering. Inventing things is a great interest of mine. And I would like to look at books on wolves. Klaus said, recently I've been fascinated by the subject of wild animals of North America. Book, Sunny shrieked, which meant, please don't forget to pick a picture book for me. Justice Strauss smiled. It's a pleasure to see young people interested in books, she said, but first I think we better find a good recipe, don't you? The children agreed for 30 minutes, and for 30 minutes or so they perused several cookbooks that Justice Strauss recommended. To tell you the truth, the 3 orphans were so excited to be out of Count house in a pleasant library that they were a little distracted and unable to concentrate on cooking. But finally, Klaus found a dish that sounded delicious and easy to make. Listen to this, he said, panenesca. It's an Italian sauce for pasta, and all we need to do is saute olives, capers, anchovies, garlic, and chopped parsley and tomatoes together in a pot and prepare spaghetti to go with it. That sounds easy, Violet agreed. And the Baudelaire orphans looked at one another, perhaps with the kind Justice Strauss and her library right next door. The children could prepare pleasant lives for themselves as easily as making panenesca sauce for Count Olaf.